be equally clear about what we are not doing. The United States and NATO are not a threat to Russia. Ukraine is not threatening Russia. Neither the U.S. nor NATO have missiles in Ukraine. We do not have plans to put them there as well. We're not targeting the people of Russia. We do not seek to destabilize Russia. To the citizens of Russia, you are not our enemy. And I do not believe you want a bloody, destructive war against Ukraine, a country and a people with whom you share such deep ties of family, history, and culture. 77 years ago, our people fought and sacrificed side by side to end the worst war in history. World War II was a war of necessity. But if Russia attacks Ukraine, it would be a war of choice, or a war without cause or reason. I say these things not to provoke, but to speak the truth, because the truth matters. Accountability matters. If Russia does invade in the days and weeks ahead, the human cost for Ukraine will be immense. And the strategic cost for Russia will also be immense. If Russia attacks Ukraine, it will be met with overwhelming international condemnation. The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction. Invading Ukraine will prove to be a self-inflicted wound. The United States and our allies and partners will respond decisively. The West is united and galvanized. Today, our NATO allies and the alliance is as unified and determined as it has ever been. And the source of our unbreakable strength continues to be the power, resilience, and universal appeal of our shared democratic values. Because this is about more than just Russia and Ukraine. It's about standing for what we believe in, for the future we want for our world, for liberty, the right of countless countries to choose their own destiny, and the right of people to determine their own futures, for the principle that a country can't change its neighbors' borders by force. That's our vision. To that end, I'm confident that vision, that freedom will prevail. As Russia proceeds, we will rally the world to oppose its aggression. The United States and our allies and partners around the world are ready to impose powerful sanctions on export controls, including actions that we did not pursue when Russia invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014. We have put intense pressure on their largest and most significant financial institutions and key industries. These measures are ready to go as soon and if Russia moves. We'll impose long-term consequences that will undermine Russia's ability to compete economically and strategically. And when it comes to Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bring natural gas from Russia to Germany, if Russia further invades Ukraine, it will not happen. While I will not send American servicemen to fight in Ukraine, we have supplied the Ukrainian military with equipment to help them defend themselves. We provide training and advice and intelligence for the same purpose. And make no mistake, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. An attack against one NATO country is an attack against all of us. The United States' commitment to Article 5 is sacrosanct. Already, in response to Russia's buildup of troops, I've sent additional U.S. forces to bolster NATO's eastern flank. Several of our allies have also announced they will add forces and capabilities to ensure deterrence and defense along NATO's eastern flank. We will also continue to conduct military exercises with our allies and partners to enhance defensive readiness. And if Russia invades, we will take further steps to reinforce our presence in NATO, reassure us for our allies, and deter further aggression. To be clear, if Russia decides to invade, that would also have consequences here at home. But the American people understand that defending democracy and liberty is never without cost. This is a cause that unites Republicans and Democrats. And I want to thank the leaders and members of Congress of both parties who have forcefully spoken out in defense of our most basic most bipartisan, most American principles. I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices. So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and offset raising prices. We're coordinating with major energy consumers and producers. We're prepared to deploy all the tools and authority at our disposal to provide relief at the gas pump. And I'll work with Congress on additional measures to help protect consumers and address the impact of prices at the pump. We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully. If Russia attacks the United States or our allies through asymmetric means, like disruptive cyber attacks against our companies or critical infrastructure, we are prepared to respond. We're moving in lockstep with our NATO allies and partners to deepen our collective defense against threats in cyberspace. Two paths are still open. For the sake of historic responsibility, Russia and the United States share for global stability. For the sake of our common future, to choose diplomacy. But let there be no doubt. If Russia commits this breach by invading Ukraine, responsible nations around the world will not hesitate to respond. We do not stand for freedom. Where it is at risk today, will surely pay a steeper price tomorrow. Thank you. Keep you informed.
Are they behind the cyber attack, Mr. President?
Мечтаете познать свое предназначение и уготован ли вам путь? У вас хорошо развита интуиция, вы чувствуете людей и можете предугадывать события, ощущаете в себе силу и уникальные способности, но не знаете, как их использовать в жизни? На самом деле развитие экстрасенсорной способности, усилить интуицию, понять предназначение, научиться помогать людям, вам помогут проверенные инструменты.
Now we're going to make this left turn. And I'm getting honked at. Now just turn right. We're supposed to go left. We just ran a red light. We just ran a red light. I get a ticket for this.
This is Taylor Ogan. He's the founder and CEO of Snowball Capital, a hedge fund that invests in green and high-tech sectors. Ogan is a self-proclaimed Tesla fan and says that he's owned the stock since the company went public. Recently, he invited CNBC to ride along with him in his 2020 Tesla Model Y, as he tested out Tesla's FSD Beta 10.8.1 software in Brooklyn, New York.
Jeez. I don't know if you realize what just happened, but that's the closest thing I've ever seen.
Ogan is not a professional test driver, nor is he a Tesla employee. Instead, he's one of the over 50,000 customers that Tesla has allowed to access FSD Beta. FSD Beta, which stands for Full Self-Driving Beta, can be best summarized as a host of new driver assistant features that are not yet debugged. Chief among them is Auto Steer on city streets, which enables drivers to automatically navigate around complex urban environments without moving the steering wheel with their own hands.
Okay, I'm going to take over there. So I wanted to change lanes in the middle of an intersection there and cut off the guy behind me.
The system is anything but self-driving, and still requires constant attention and intervention from the driver, a caveat that Tesla highlights on its website.
With it being a beta, I assume that at any time the car could just
has earned Tesla side-eye from competitors, who usually have professionally trained drivers, not customers, in their vehicles. But for now, the program is still available for thousands of Tesla owners to access, without the knowledge of drivers and pedestrians around them.
Tesla is pushing the bounds of what is possible with self-driving, and they've got to be applauded for that. On the other hand, they're taking a huge gamble with this by putting an incomplete or a buggy piece of software on the roads.
CNBC went for a ride with 3 FSD beta testers in different parts of the country to see how the system performs in the real world and explore what this program could mean for the future of vehicle automation. Before we get into our ride-alongs, it's important to understand what FSD beta can and can't do. The way that Tesla markets its driver assistance packages has historically been confusing. Tesla's standard driver assistance package is marketed as Autopilot. Its functionality includes automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning, lane keeping, and adaptive cruise control, which matches the speed of your car to that of the surrounding traffic. For an extra $12,000 or $199 per month, Tesla sells an option it calls Full Self-Driving, or FSD. The premium package includes more sophisticated features like automatic lane changing, automatic parking, and Smart Summon, which lets drivers call their car from a parking spot to come pick them up. FSD Beta takes this one step further, with unfinished features like auto steer on city streets and traffic light and stop sign control, which identifies stop signs and traffic lights and automatically slows your car to a stop upon approach. Although they may sound advanced, none of these packages come even close to making Tesla's vehicles autonomous.
When we're talking about FSD Beta here, we're talking really about a system that is an SAE Level 2 system that is designed to assist the driver in a wide variety of different situations. But the driver at all times is responsible for the control of the vehicle.
By comparison, a robo-taxi would be level 4 or higher.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that people think that this is somehow going to be a robo-taxi.
Listening to Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who's been promising driverless cars since 2016, it's easy to see why people may believe that.
My personal guess is that we'll achieve full self-driving this year at a safety level significantly greater than a person. Over time, we think full self-driving will become the most important source of profitability for Tesla. If you run the numbers on robo-taxis, it's nutty good from a financial standpoint.
In order to gain access to FSD Beta, participants have to first allow Tesla to monitor their driving for a period of time until they can earn a high enough safety score. The score is calculated based on 5 metrics specified by Tesla. Those who qualify are allowed to download FSD Beta via an over-the-air update. While some testers say that earning a high score is hard and require driving even more cautiously than they typically would, Owen says he was able to easily game the system.
The way I got a 100 on the safety score was I drove like a grandma for 103 miles, and then I didn't drive it for a week, and then I had a 100 safety score, and then I was granted access to the beta software.
Newer Tesla vehicles have in-cabin cameras, which are supposed to monitor drivers and alert them if they're not paying attention. If a driver gets enough warnings, the car can disable driver assistance features temporarily. After several warnings, a driver may get kicked out of the FSD Beta program entirely. But not all Teslas have camera-based driver monitoring, and those with cameras are far from perfect. Kelly Funkhauser's been testing Tesla's Autopilot and FSD Beta on a closed route for Consumer Reports, and says that a lot of the time, Tesla's driver monitoring systems simply didn't work.
In our testing, we weren't able to really get that camera to be sufficient for, monitoring attention, because we could cover it and, the camera wasn't even there. And as long as you have your hands on the wheel, even if you're looking at your you'd never get any of those warnings. When Tesla claimed messages blocked, any of
Are you really in control?
Are
risk register for you. It serves as a car. Consequences and a set of medium here. But is this risk assessment correct?
Wow, yes!
The both I method comes in. Now take the same information and translate it into this visual diagram. You can see the linkages between all information from a single glance. Two things stand out. 1. The intoxicated driving threat on the left is completely exposed. 2. Most of the barriers are on the right-hand side, meaning that this company primarily reacts to unwanted events, rather than preventing them from happening. Looking at the 3 barriers on the right, you can see that they are all in red, showing poor barrier effectiveness. If this was your business, you could conclude that the scenario that an employee gets drunk in his car, loses control over the car, impacting both himself and the vehicle, seems very likely.
We decided to run our own tests with the in-cabin camera using Ogun's Model Y. The first time, we covered the camera before attempting to engage FSD beta and were unable to do so.
Yep, cabin camera is covered or blinded.
When we covered the camera after FSD beta was already engaged, we were able to drive for about a block before the system turned off and gave us a strike. During our drive in Brooklyn, FSD beta struggled with pedestrians.
Here's a pedestrian. We have the right of way. We have green. And look at that. It just slammed on it. She wasn't crossing. She was waiting to cross.
Traffic lights.
Okay, I don't know why we're stopped here. And now we just missed the light. Sorry, yeah, this woman's laughing at me. We can't help but laugh.
And complex intersections.
Doesn't want to go. There's a bus behind us. Or it's just not going. Now it's creeping. Go. Now it's trying to go right. We're in the middle of an 8-way intersection. Just stuck in the middle. So of course I have to take over.
At one point during the drive, Ogun restarted the system and was able to engage FSD even with the screen still black.
Yeah. The screen is black. And the car is driving itself. I have no idea what it can see. I don't know if it's engaged or not. You can see the wheel turning. I don't know which way it wants to turn. It just slammed on the brakes. There's a school bus behind me. I just got honked at. Look at that. See that, Pete Buttigieg?
FSD beta did not fare much better in San Francisco, where we also tested version 10.8.1. Complex intersections.
Hold on one sec. Yeah, okay.
О, закажи Линде. Большой выбор подарков на 23 февраля со скидкой до 60%. Ты меня не напугаешь?
Эта работа слишком опасна.
Wow. Let's give it up for our 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden. All right. Thank you all so much. He began his public service career in Delaware Council. He's community and has a human service heart. He understands government. He went to Bachelor of Additionally, he is away for the infrastructure plan. $1.2 trillion. Roads, bridges, trails, sidewalk, sewer. He understands counties at the very grassroots level. Thank you, President Biden. We're grateful for such a strong partner in the White House. It is my distinct honor to introduce to all of you our friend, the 46th President of these United States, Joe Biden. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be back with you all. Commissioner Larry Johnson, DeKalb County, Georgia, thank you for your leadership. I also want to thank all the folks working so hard here in Washington Hilton to make this conference possible. And you want to know how seriously I take the role you play on the front lines in this country, just look at who I asked to come with you. You said you wanted to know what's going on in the administration. Yeah, secretaries, three secretaries, an administrator, Reagan EPA, Gene Sperling, leading the rescue plan implementation, Mitch Landry, leading implementation of the infrastructure law, and you all know and along with a number of other key deputies. Look, I want to recognize my home county executive, Matt Myers, so I can go back home. Matt, thank you. Thank you. Matt's doing one heck of a job, and I'm sure he's told you the story about my time in the county council. You know, I don't know about you all, but commissioner, councilman, whichever your title is, you knock on the door and say, my name is Joe Biden, I'm a candidate for the county council. They look at you like, okay. And you're wondering what the county council does, aren't you? Well, it affects their lives more than anybody else's. I know it really does. You're involved in everything. When a constituent called, she said I represented we have one county that has 60% of the state's population, and we had 6 councilmen. So a councilman's district was 7 times bigger than a House member, and in the state House, and 3 times bigger than a state senator. And I represented a middle-class district to a working-class district, but there was one very wealthy neighborhood. And I got a call one night. A woman said to me, obviously not of the same persuasion as I was politically, called me and said, there's a dead dog on my lawn. And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, have you called the county? He said, yes, they're not here. And I said, well, I'll get them in the morning. She said, I want it removed now. I pay your salary. So I went over. I picked it up. She said, I want it out of my front yard. I put it on her doorstep. But I've got much better since then. So know from personal experience how hard the job you have is. People having a phone, or or they're afraid to use that phone. I used to give out my phone number. Can't do that anymore. They don't even allow me to have a phone anymore. But I also know you work often on the basis of what other people, when they've lost faith, they have faith, they lose faith in government. You're there. You represent the front lines of public service. It's not hyperbole. That's why I was elected. One of the first calls I made was to your board of directors. And I reminded Judge Gary Moore, your past president, that this administration includes the president, vice president, who are both former county officials. And I promise I'll always have you as a partner with us. Partnership is critical when we pass the American Rescue Plan, most significant investment in the country's local governments in American history. I also inherited a tough situation in 2020, but after an incredibly difficult year, local and state governments have added 448,000 new jobs in 2021, the strongest growth in 20 years. And it's amazing what you all do. I really mean it. I'm not being solicitous. After a year of disruption for our kids, we were able to add education jobs in 2021, more than any other year on record. You got county law enforcement officers, first responders back in the job, so ambulances could arrive on time, communities can be kept safe. And the big reason why America's recovery has led the world is because of all of you. And why my first year in office, more jobs were created than ever any time in American history, 6.6 million jobs. You. And folks, look, we had the strongest economic growth in nearly 40 years, 5.7% increase in the GDP. The unemployment rate dropped more than any time, any year in American history. Child poverty dropped by 40%, more than any year in American history. And folks, new business applications grew at a faster rate than any year on record. The rescue plan also was the first major relief bill to get directly to counties, because here's what I learned. When I was a county councilman, if you get money for a state, what happens is it goes through the state legislature. And guess what? Well, I wanted to make sure the money goes directly to the counties. Directly to the counties. No, really. We allocated $350 billion to state and local budgets. We made sure that $1 billion of that went straight to the counties and cities. And look, I know how much it matters. It really matters. Giving you the ability, the flexibility, the control to meet both the short-term and long-term challenges you face. Which, by the way, even I'm not being critical of state legislatures or others, but people don't know the full responsibility and that you all have. Even other elected officials. I mean, I'm not being solicitous. It's just true. And by the way, that rescue plan is still delivering. I urge all of you to use the flexibility we built into that law and spend those funds wisely. Build a future around working people who make up the communities you run. Put these funds to work to keep people on the job. Connect people with better jobs. Providing retention bonuses for teachers and bus drivers, like Howard County, Maryland did. Adding healthcare centers and training new child care workers like, I hope I pronounced it, Deschutes County, Oregon? Where are you, Deschutes County? Well, what you did matters. Helping unemployed parents get back to work by covering child care costs, like Oakland County, Michigan. Reducing gun crime by retaining police officers like DeKalb County did in Georgia. Expanding community